John, Peter Harcher. 120 countries in the world count China as their main trading partner. 68 countries so far have signed up to China's Belt and Road Initiative. How many countries forcibly are resisting Chinese expansionism?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what your point is. All of these countries have good economic relations with China. There's no question about it. China is an expansive power. China is not simply interested in East Asia. It's going to build the Blue Water Navy. The Chinese will tell you they plan to control their sea lines of communication that run from East Asia through the Straits of Malacca into the Indian Ocean to the Persian Gulf. The Belt and Road is designed not just for economic purposes, but for security purposes. This is good old-fashioned power projection. And the Chinese are interested in being a superpower, just like the United States. There's no question about that. Your question is, who's pushing back? Not many people or not many countries are pushing back at this point because it's early in the game. As you surely know, the Americans are now only beginning to push back. Right? We are early in this game. The question is, what does it look like over the next 20 or 30 years? But if you go to places like Vietnam, you go to places like India, Singapore, Philippines, Japan for sure, Taiwan, South Korea, there are lots of people in those countries who are really scared of the Chinese and would like to see the Americans contain the Chinese. But the problem that they face, and the reason that they're not pushing back very hard, is the same reason that Australians are not interested in pushing back very hard, which is there's all this economic intercourse between these countries and China. And the argument that I'm making to you is that this situation is in the process of changing. And at some point down the road, Australia, and not only Australia, but a lot of other countries, are going to have to figure out which side they're on. And by the way, we could go to Europe and talk about this. When it comes to balancing against China, the Europeans are going to play hardly any role at all. They're not going to be in the balancing coalition. These are countries that are getting weaker and weaker every year, and they had very little power projection capability to start with. Nevertheless, the Chinese are going to want to trade extensively with the Europeans, and they're going to want to trade in dual-use technologies, the kind of technologies we are not going to want the Europeans to give to the Chinese. The Europeans are going to have to decide whether they're with the United States or whether or not they're with the Chinese. And this will have all sorts of consequences for the American commitment to Europe. Again, you can see these problems that are beginning to manifest themselves. If the Europeans are trading dual-use technologies with the Chinese and basically telling the Americans to take a hike, I don't think the Americans are going to be very happy about that. And they're not going to want to leave forces, military forces in Europe to protect the Europeans in that situation. Right? But this is all coming. Again, I told you that, we need a theory to think about the future. And we need a theory because the future hasn't happened yet. And maybe I'll be proved wrong. Maybe someone like you, White, will be proved correct. And apropos the question I was asked before by Tony, maybe the Chinese leaders and the American leaders, with the help of the Australians, will be able to figure out a clever way to get out of this. Maybe that'll happen. Okay. I may be wrong. Let's hope I'm wrong.
James Curran, Professor.
Don't bet against me.